Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel and to another video. Today is an exciting day, July 29, last day of class and also last day of my 4th year in college. I now finished senior year and no, I'm not graduating because my program is 5 years, actually 4.5, but I'm doing it in 5 or 5.5-ish. Anyway, I still thought today is a good time to make a video about 4 lessons that I learned in 4 years of college. And these are not your average how I learned to study best for exams tips or lessons. These are personal lessons that I learned over those 4 years and that have changed the way I think, that have completely transformed my college experience and that will impact my future career path. And so I really wanted to share these with you to maybe get you thinking and get you inspired, or just give you a heads up if you are in college and you were not feeling like it's the time of your life, or if you were just about to start college and if you're worried about how it's going to be and if it's really going to be the best time of your life as it is shown in movies and books and whatever. So why don't we get started? So the first lesson that I learned is college does not teach you the what, it teaches you the how. So you go into your classes and the most important thing that you come out with, the most important skill is not knowing the content of the class. I mean, obviously you should probably know the content if you are taking a final exam for the class, but I promise you after bulk studying in final season, you will probably have forgotten most of that stuff you learned by the end of the semester break. And that's completely normal. But what college is really supposed to teach you is those crucial skills that you will need in your later life and in your career, and that will help you to self-learn about anything. So that means organizational skills, that means learning how to read a text properly so that you can extract information from it. That means learning to write a paper, to write an essay, to tackle problems that you have never had before you, and to find solutions that are creative, to work in groups, to learn to work with people that you don't like as much but still have to get along with. So these are some skills that you will learn through your classes, and that might not be so obvious. So there were so many classes in my career so far where I was like, you know, that is complete nonsense. Why is that important? Why would I learn that? And it was only afterwards that I understood that it wasn't the content that mattered so much, but rather the skills that I acquired through working on that content. And this is what college is all about. Obviously, there are some classes where the content will be relevant to your later career, and with time you will be able to figure out where to really pay attention and where you just need to get through. So that takes some time, but that's another thing you adapt and you learn. After sophomore year at the latest, you know how things work in college and you'll be fine. The second thing I learned is kind of related to the first one, and that is it is completely normal if you feel like you know nothing in the beginning. So, for example, I've been in that situation a couple of times at a family gathering where a relative would come up to me and say, "Oh hey, you study American studies, so could you explain to me why US society is so divided and what President Trump wants?" And I was like, no, I can't. I mean, yes, I study American studies, but first of all, I'm only an undergrad. Second of all, I can't explain that off the cuff, and your average undergrad student probably can't explain that off the cuff. And third, especially in the first years of college, it's completely normal to feel lost within that huge amount of things that you will learn. So when I started out with introductory classes to American history, I was terrified by all those dates and numbers and events and stuff that I was supposed to remember, and I thought that I would never be able to. But now, after the end of my 4th year, I would say that I have a pretty solid scaffolding in my brain with all the historic events and dates that happened, and I'm now, with that scaffolding, able to fill it in with information that I'm getting from my different classes. For example, about African American culture and how that relates to American history and society as a whole, or what I'm currently working on, American Indian history and present relations. And then of course the same goes for geography. I was completely overwhelmed when I took the introductory class back in my freshman year, first semester, and I thought I would never be able to come to terms with physical geography, and now I teach the tutorial to that very same class, and after doing it for the second time, I've gotten quite a good overview over all the topics, and it's not that hard after all, but you need to give your brain time to build these structures, to build a scaffolding, and then fill it in with information, and that is going to happen over time if you put in a little effort, if these things interest you, because then you're naturally gonna wanna learn more even outside of your classes. And so yeah, don't feel dumb if you feel like you know nothing in the beginning. It's normal, and that feeling will go away at some point. Now, those first 2 lessons were things that were they just came to me after a while. I realized them when I thought about what I would put in this video. The third one is a pill that was a little bit harder for me to swallow, and that is college is an incredibly transformative time. So when I went in as a freshman, I enrolled in teacher training for high school English and geography, and I firmly believed that I would end up a high school teacher because that is the only job I ever wanted to do, but it was also the only job I had ever really seen. I mean, I'd spent 12 years in school, and so the only profession I had been able to, observe all my life was being a teacher. Many of my family members are teachers, so that's the only thing I really knew, and I couldn't see myself anywhere else. I also didn't want to do a bachelor's degree. I briefly looked at the European Studies bachelor's degree at the University of Passau, but when I saw the curriculum, I was like, okay, but what am I gonna be at the end? Like, what's gonna come out of it? And I was terrified of the thought of not knowing what job I would have later, whereas as a teacher trainee, obviously I know I will end up teaching. So yeah, that's how I went in with that mindset. And then I think it was at the end of sophomore year, when I started realizing that I actually like scientific work, research, deep diving into topics, learning more than what was needed for the average class, and that I actually did not enjoy the pedagogy, didactics, psychology part of my studies as much. And then during my school internships, which, to be fair, were both disrupted by COVID, so I didn't really get the normal experience there. But after both of these internships, I felt that while it was nice and while I got great feedback from teachers and students, it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that thought, when I realized that, was terrifying at first, because I thought, okay, if I'm not going into teaching, what am I going to do instead, And then after a while, I realized that those things that I like most are American studies and geography. And so over at least a period of 6-7 months, this thought formed in my head that yes, I could actually go down a different career path. Like, just because I am that far in my teacher training program doesn't mean that I have to stick to this path. So what I'm gonna do now, as of now, these plans might change. I mean, I still have some time here in undergrad before me, but my plan as of now is to finish this degree, take the state exam, and then do a master's degree afterwards and see where I end up. But it is completely normal that your interests might do a 180 turn during college and that you will be transformed as a person. Like, I definitely wasn't the same person that I was when I started college 4 years ago. I was an 18-year-old. I thought I had figured my life out, and I really hadn't. And it's a bit terrifying, but it's actually a great thought that you don't have to stick to the path you're currently on. Like, that can also be really liberating. I know that was a bit philosophical, but that's just my thoughts on that. And then lesson number 4 is probably the most important thing I learned during those 4 years, and the most important advice I could give to anyone who is in college right now and feels like they don't belong, or who is starting out and is terrified that they won't make any friends, or that they won't make a lot of friends because all their high school friends are moving away. That's a little bit like what it was for me. So many of my high school friends actually stayed here, and that's why during my first semester I wasn't forced to make new friends, because there were a handful of people that I already knew from school, and so I kind of stick to them. I still met new people, of course, and I made 2 friends that I'm still friends with today. But all the others, they were more acquaintances, and we still say hello when I meet them on the hallways, but I never really, stepped into a real friendship with them. But then, of course, the pandemic came around and everybody had to stay home and we weren't allowed to see each other. And so this past summer semester of senior year was the first semester fully back on campus after the pandemic. I just had 1 online class and the rest was in person. And it was only this semester that I fully realized the importance of having just a handful of close friends that will go through this university experience with you. So you really don't need a large circle of friends. I mean, I know people here who have this huge friend group of 20-30 people, and I bet that is a lot of fun, but I also bet that they are not close with everybody from this group. That's just, I don't think that's possible. Maybe it is, but in my experience, it is not. And it also isn't necessary. Like, you don't need a friend group of 20-30 people like you always see it in those college movies or read it in books. You don't need that. All that matters is that you find a handful of close friends that you can talk to about literally anything, college related, but also personal, and hold on to these people, because they are the ones that will make university so much more fun, so much easier to go through, even when it gets hard, when you are stressed out, or when you are facing problems and don't know how to proceed. And if you're someone who struggles with social anxiety and who isn't really outgoing, I don't struggle with social anxiety, but I'm not really outgoing, or at least I wasn't over the past couple of years. It's changed a little bit now that I'm really immersed in the academic field, that I'm working in 2 departments, because I simply know more people and it feels easier to approach new people from the standpoint of being staff at the university. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, it's become a little bit easier for me. But let me tell you this, all of those friends that I'm now really close with, I can probably count them down on 2 hands. I've all met them by coincidence. Like, we met in class, we sat next to each other, we exchanged notes and numbers, and somehow we ended up chatting, and then we ended up being really close friends. Or I met other friends through those friends. So these things always happen when you least expect them. Go to networking events, join student organizations, do whatever you want to do, but don't force it, because those friends that are really meant to be in your life, they will come naturally. Those are the most important things I learned in 4 years of college. And honestly, I am so excited for the rest of my time here in Passau. I love the university, I love the student life that I've built here, my friend group, the classes I'm taking, the work I'm doing. I really feel at home here in the city, and obviously I am home in the city, I am from here, but I guess you get what I'm trying to say, is that I have built a student life that is right for me, and so I wanted to share these things with you, because if you're worried that college is not going to be what you hoped it would be, don't worry, because all those things will fall into place eventually, and your time is as good as you make it. So find some things you enjoy, find people you vibe with, and then go ahead and just have a good time, because college time is never coming back. And yeah, that was really emotional today, but it's the last day of classes, so it's okay to be a bit emotional. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.